down New York gun laws, yes, the United States Supreme Court is said to the nation that everybody over the age of 18 essentially has the right to bear arms in public. Did you hear me, my good friends? The United States Supreme Court has said essentially that every man and woman 18 or over has essentially the right to walk the streets of America strapped with a gun. They knocked down New York state laws that didn't allow for, yes, people just to walk around with guns strapped to their waist. But guess what? The Supreme Court has made a different decision, essentially making it again the United States the wild, wild West. Yes, I said it, the wild, wild West. You know how in Texas you essentially can, yeah, run around, walk around, act a fool by having a gun in public. Well, the United States Supreme Court has said that everyone has a right, essentially, to run around, walk around, and act a fool, brandishing, yes, their guns. So expect in Massachusetts and other places around the country that people will be packing, and Massachusetts laws, like New York laws, are going to be considered unconstitutional. And I guarantee legislators across the country, particularly Republican legislators, will be filing lawsuits against states for their restriction of guns, saying that it is now unconstitutional. Supreme Court as well knocked down Roe v. Wade, the right to women to control their bodies, and made a decision essentially knocking down Roe versus Wade, the right to have an abortion, particularly around issues of incest, rape, and so forth, where a woman should have the right to make a decision. That's my opinion. I could be right. Roe versus Wade knocked down. There's more. Out of Washington, D.C. again, the Senate okays the landmark gun control bill. Well, that gun control bill, other than mental health services and security services for money for those services in the billions, by the way. That's a good thing. But now they don't want to go with a full throttle background check or any other restrictions of, yes, semi-automatic weapons being on the streets of America. The Senate okays that landmark gun control bill. At least they did something. Oh, yeah, they added that you can't. There'll be additional requirements if you're 18 years old and, trying to get a gun. I think they jumped that age up to 21. Woo, woo. But what about all the guns that
Recording stopped.
Across the country? What about all the guns that are across the country? That's the good question of the day. There's more. Trump, and I don't like saying that name on my broadcast, this broadcast, but Trump has made a decision many moons ago to push the Justice Department to pursue false election claims. Well, we knew this, but we didn't know the integral details. But here in Washington, D.C., there has been this focus on this commission that has had public hearings to discuss what Trump did and what these folks that wanted to destroy America, take over the Constitution, take over in Congress on that fateful day when Americans' institutions were attacked. Trump. Well, we're finding out a lot about what decisions Trump was making during the time in which he was president of the United States. And the word is that Trump essentially was the person that was pulling all the decisions with regards to this event that occurred where people attacked the United States Congress. He was pulling and making all the decisions in the background, telling people what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. And then when he got essentially fired by the American people and lost the election, he attempted to manipulate the facts, the truth. He tried to sell the big lie. This is All Things Black Politics Live here in Washington, D.C. I'm your host, Leon Rock. Telephone number to call in is 301-715-8592. The passcode, and please write this down, is 748535. Again, 748535. Telephone number again is 301-715-8592. This has been an interesting conversation about what is going on in Washington, D.C., but there's some things going on, yes, in our hometown of Boston that has been uncovered actually by a interesting set of articles in the Bay State Banner. But before I get to the Bay State Banner, which is an excellent piece of news, actually Black community news in Boston. The Bay State Banner has been covering some interesting issues, and one of the issues is a election issue, which I wanted to talk about as well. And it appears that the district attorney, well, the current acting district attorney, he's called Mr. Hayden. I think he has been on the Boston Black News and actually Boston Praise Radio and TV. I'm not sure which, but I do remember seeing him recently in an interview. And pretty interesting DA, acting DA. But there's a controversy. And the controversy is related to Kevin Hayden, and he is running for Suffolk County District Attorney. And his predecessor, Rachel Rollins, has a footprint that she left on not criminalizing poverty and drug addiction and not prosecuting low level offenses. But as the Bay State Banner reports, DA Hayden may be actually reversing Rollins' policies. And public defenders are citing the changes in the office. See, because, excuse me, when he was appointed Suffolk County District Attorney in January, Kevin Hayden said he would maintain his predecessor, Rachel Rollins' commitment to reducing the county's, footprint, not criminalizing poverty and drug addiction and not prosecuting lower level offenses. Those are all things he says he stood behind and supported even when he was in the DA's office many years ago. Well, that's what he told GBH's news anchor, Jim Broad. Yet, 4 months into his administration, the Bay State Banner reports, some are questioning Hayden's commitment to the bold criminal justice reform voters chose when they elected Rollins in 2018. While Rollins' policies was for assistant district attorneys in her office to decline to prosecute 15 misdemeanor crimes, including trespassing, disorderly conduct, and breaking and entering, unless prosecuting such charges was approved by a supervisor. Hayden has left prosecution of misdemeanors up to the discretion of assistant district attorneys. Yeah, here's the facts. Christian Williams, a former defense attorney with the Committee for Public Counsel Services, who is now a clinical instructor with the Harvard Law School Criminal Justice Institute, says Hayden's prosecutors and Roxbury District Court are regularly pressing charges of lower misdemeanors at arraignment. Yeah. He points to a client who was arrested and jailed for selling loose cigarettes in Nubian Square. Did you hear what I said? He points to a client who was arrested and jailed for selling loose cigarettes in Nubian Square. This is just an old guy selling cigarettes, he said. I don't get how he's really hurting anyone. The policy change and the apparent increase in prosecutors' willingness to pursue low-level offenses reads like a rollback of Rollins' policies and criminal justice reform, advocates say. Well, that's interesting. I haven't had the opportunity to have the current acting DA, DA Hayden, on our program, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to invite him on to see if there are some things that need to be talked about, and I'm sure there are. This is All Things Black Politics, live on Boston Black News. I'm your host, Leon Rock. Telephone number to call in is 301-715-8592. Again, 301-715-8592. Well, there's more. Yeah, the Bay State Banner is covering the issues as Boston Black News does as well. essentially a good team of folks doing good work in community to keep you informed. I was reading an article in the Bay State Banner as well. Well, it's not necessarily an article. Let's put it an opinion piece. And the opinion piece was about the city councilors of the city of Boston's move and push for Boston's slavery apology. I'm not sure if I agree or disagree with the article itself, but it's timely. You see, the Boston City Council is pushing that the city of Boston apologize for its actions and inactions regarding slavery. Anna Lamb in the Bay State Banner talks about that decision as the measure passed unanimously, calling on the city to acknowledge and condemn and apologize for its role in slavery. The Boston City Council last week unanimously, let me say that 3 times, unanimously approved a measure to acknowledge and condemn and apologize for its role played by the city of Boston in the transatlantic slave trade and the ongoing detrimental impacts experienced by Black people of Boston, making its latest step in a continued fight by councilors to win reparations for Bostonians impacted by slavery. The resolution put forward by District 7 Councilor Tanya Fernandez Anderson, Tanya Anderson, cites that the city's involvement in the transatlantic slave trade during the colonial era, enslaved Africans were sold in Boston. Prominent Bostonians, including Peter Faneuil, who donated the Faneuil Hall to the city, profited from slave trade. The slavery was abolished in Massachusetts in 1783. After the colonies cut their ties to England, Boston was incorporated as the city in 1822. There's more facts, my good friends, and let me share them with you. Councilor Anderson's resolution set out to achieve its goal through the removal of prominent anti-Black symbols across the city by pledging to educate Bostonians on the history of the slave trade. Moreover, it promises to commit in creating a registry of truth and reconciliation for Bostonians wishing to apologize and express regret for past injustices. Well, the Bay State Banner is reporting as well. While the resolution is non-binding, it does stipulate that the council vows to dedicate policies and efforts to repair past and present harm done to Black Americans via systemic racism in various realms of the city life, including housing, healthcare, education, and workplace. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Reparations. The city of Boston says that there is no funding at this point to go along with the resolution. It is unclear what direct action may spur. It does, however, signal to councilors and reparations advocates that the city's government is willing to acknowledge fault for ongoing consequences faced by Black Bostonians. I'm asking that you give your heart and your courage so that you can actually act upon our intention and hopefully acknowledge the harm and begin discussion about its meaning to truly undo the harm that has been done to African American people. In the city of Boston, City Councilor Fernandez Anderson indicated, as she told her colleagues ahead of the Wednesday of last week's vote, several councilors gave their vocal support in front of small audiences in the, I remember this, Chris Ianella chamber, including District 3 Councilor Frank Baker, who, despite reservations about the terminology of apologizing, lent his support. What is so confusing about the terminology apologizing? Anyway, he supported it. There's three pieces here: acknowledge and condemn the and apologize. I feel so far removed from John Winthrop and Peter Faneuil and Harvard University. I grew up in a little rough and tumble. We grew up poor, so I apologize. The apology part is difficult for me, Baker said, but I think if my words can help your community heal and our community in Boston heal, then I'm absolutely ready to do this and sign on and vote for this. I need to get him on the program. City Councilor Frank Baker. I want to delve deep into his thinking, because on one hand he voted for it, but then he says apology, what? Yeah, whatever. That's what he's saying, and I want to dig into that thought process about why not apologize for the history of slavery in this country. Or is an apology necessary? Ruth Z., a city council woman, also spoke in support of Wednesday's resolution, saying it is not about whether it was your idea, it's about acknowledging that profit, that wealth in this country and in the city of Boston is rooted in an unjust system that really started with indigenous folks in Mass Bay Colony, but continued with slavery. Well said, Ruth Z. Well said. She said and continued, so we have a lot of work to do to atone for that, to repair the harm, and to do the work together to really be honest about our history and do the work in repairing, repairing our country, repairing our city. Ruzi, well said. The latest resolution comes months after at-large Councilor Julia Mejia proposed a creation of a commission to look into reparations for Black Bostonians facing repercussions for the city's involvement in slavery, redlining, and other forms of discrimination. This one right here is pretty interesting. That Julia Mejia urged and proposed to create a commission to look at reparations for Black Bostonians facing repercussions from city involvement in slavery, redlining, and other forms of discrimination. Hey, guess what? When does it begin and when does it end? I'm a Black Bostonian. My folks are Black Bostonians. But my folks came from, well, my grandmother and grandfather. They came from Barbados, but moved to Boston at a young age. But we have experienced over the years, our families have faced the repercussions of the city's involvement in slavery, redlining, and all forms of discrimination. Oh, yeah, I went to a de facto segregated school in Boston. Should I receive benefits from that experience? The repercussions of slavery? Even though my folks are from the islands? But we were impacted by the repercussions of slavery. So when does it start and when does it end? I don't know. I'd be interested in hearing what people, and by the way, I'm no longer in my hometown of Boston. Love it. Visit it. But I'm not in my hometown anymore. So when does it stop? When does it stop? As soon as I leave Boston, am I not the beneficiary of the impact of slavery on Bostonians, Black Bostonians? So if you move out of the city, do those benefits stop? Good question, right? I got a lot of questions. That's an article out of the Bay State Banner that I was commenting on. And this is All Things Black Politics live here on Boston Black News. You know me, I'm your host, Leon Rock, and I'm here every Friday at 11 o'clock. By the way, we are on a platform that has, 30 plus internet capabilities in terms of you listening in or watching. Facebook, YouTube, the whole 9 yards, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. Boston Black News is on it, so you have no excuse. And actually, you can listen in to this broadcast and other broadcasts on bostonblacknews.com. Again, bostonblacknews.com. You can always get the link to watch the program, to listen in, and to call in. You can call in right now at 301-715-8592. Again, 301-715-8592. We got a lot to talk about. Oh, we have talked about the federal issues, the Supreme Court issues, but let's get down locally. And by the way, we've been getting down locally for a moment about this whole reparations issue in the Boston's Black community. Why do I say African Americans versus Black? I'm still hung up on that. That's for another conversation, by the way. So getting back to the representative or the city councilor, Julia Mejia, proposing the creation of that commission to look at into reparations for Black Bostonians facing repercussions because of the city's involvement in slavery. I'm all for it, but I just want to know when does it start and when does it end? And by the way, when does it start? There's a whole bunch of Bostonians that happen to be Black now. Well, not happen to be Black now, actually are Black or African American. Here we go again with that terminology, Black and African American. There's a whole bunch of folks that just came and arrived into Boston, maybe here for a year, 2, 3, went to college in Boston. And are they impacted by the repercussions of slavery? Probably. Do they get benefit? Are they beneficiaries of this system that Julia Mejia wants to have a commission to take a look at? Well, the system of injustice and inequality in Boston. That's what Julia Mejia is saying she wants to address through this commission. Yeah. Let me go back a little bit. City Council held a hearing in March to discuss how the commission might look and what the costs associated might be. A vote to officially create such a commission has yet happened. Mejia, who said that she received backlash in her wake of her proposal, said she hopes that the acknowledgement of Boston's role in slavery can lead to increased support of reparations. Woo woo. I'm for reparations, but I'm not for reparations that is not logical. When do you say that someone gets benefit, and what are those benefits going to be? Cities are taking it up, states are taking it up, the federal government should take it up. They're sending all this money over to wars, billions of dollars, and black folks can't get reparations. That's a shame. As Julia Mejia said, we got to keep on showing up and pushing the envelope. And that's what I'm doing today by this conversation here on Boston Black News. I'm your host, Leon Rock, and we're talking all things black politics. And the Supreme Court, as we said, has struck down New York gun laws. I've been talking about that today. Also been talking about the Supreme Court overturns Roe versus Wade. Yeah. Senate okays a landmark gun control bill. We talked about that. Trump. I don't even like the name. Tear down everything Trump. When I say tear down everything Trump, just take the name off all those buildings that he rents. And actually, he should be charged with high crimes and misdemeanors against the United States government. That's what should happen with Donald Trump. Yeah, Trump pushed, as you can hear from those hearings, the Justice Department to pursue false election claims. And then all those Republicans that were talking that madness, they had their audacity to pursue an opportunity to protect themselves. Yeah. They wanted Trump to give them pardons so that, they wouldn't have to go to jail in case like this commission or the Justice Department went after them for the high crimes and misdemeanors that they created. That's my opinion. I could be right. Actually, it's my opinion, and I know I'm right. There's more. Yeah, the city council is addressing the issue of reparations, and I like it, but I'm not too sure that anything is really going to change. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but I'm not. In the news, Joe Feaster, a good friend of mine, was at Williams James College, and he received a well-respected award for his work as a leader in the mental health arena. They awarded Joseph Feaster, who is a phenomenal attorney. He received a Doctor of Humane Letters, which is the highest degree that the academic institution bestows on anyone. So we salute Joseph Feaster for his excellent work in addressing mental health crisis in the state of Massachusetts, particularly his hometown of Boston. Oh, there's more news. I just had to celebrate for a minute. There's more news. Two candidates. Oh, this one is mind-boggling. Yeah, Boston. Public schools is a challenge. Boston public schools have been a challenge since I was going and even before then. Remember school desegregation? Awful. Remember what they called forced busing? Awful. Remember what Boston had to go through? Well, the city of Boston has a problem with its education system. To be the oldest public educational system in America, there's a challenge in the city of Boston, and that is the school committee is not elected. The people of Boston said that they want an elected school committee. The mayor supports a hybrid school committee, even though the voters support an elected school committee. The city has been in turmoil with its education system, overall operating, how it works, how it functions. Superintendent was essentially fired by the mayor, former superintendent. Well, I'm saying that she was essentially fired. She said she resigned, but you know how that goes. They say they resign. And by the way, she got a golden parachute too. She got paid by this unelected school committee just to walk away. And now they've been searching for a new superintendent. Now, in the city of Boston, the majority of students are people of color. Yeah, there was that white flight. Remember white flight? See, when school desegregation happened in South Boston, Charlestown, East Boston, and all sorts of other places, they ran out the city. I'm talking about the people that didn't want their children to go to school with Black people. They ran out the city and moved to Nahant and the South Shore, North Shore, all sorts of shores. They just left, leaving behind the same dysfunctional City of Boston public schools that I fought against back in the 1970s. Yeah, I'm telling you my age. Now the City of Boston public school officials announced two finalists in the search for the district's next superintendent. The two will be interviewed this week in a series of public meetings. Now get this. This is what I'm saying is odd, strange, bizarre. Don't get me started with those adjectives. You see, because Somerville public school superintendent Mary Skipper and Boston Public Schools Region 1 superintendent Tommy Walsh emerged as the finalists from a field of 35 candidates. What's up with that? You get 35 candidates, and there's no approach to affirmatively recruiting a black person or a Latino person or another person of color to run the person of color. Boston Public Schools. Now they say Mary Skipper, who is Somerville's uh, public school superintendent. Well, you wait a minute. We already know what's going on in Somerville. Why give her the opportunity to come to Boston? Is Somerville that great of a public school system that you need to recruit her and do the work in Boston? How about some of those black area superintendents or folks that used to be principals? A number of them black. I shouldn't say many, I should say a number of them black. There's a whole bunch of folks that I would love to have seen had the opportunity to become the next superintendent. Hell, I have to say this. I would love to have seen my dear friend Ron Spratlin actually become the next superintendent. I know that he's in retirement. Bring him out of retirement. He knew the Boston public school system and its parents and its students, and many of them that he taught at English High and other places. He knows how to work the system. Bring someone in, but they didn't want to do that. They didn't want any black folks, I guess. 35 candidates. I'd like to know what the protocols and what was the procedures on the searching for the best candidate. And are these two the best candidates? Yeah, I'd like to get them on the program too, once decisions are made, or even before decisions are made. Skipper, yeah. Skipper. Mary Skipper is a former superintendent in high schools for the Boston Public Schools, has led the 19,500 student Somerville district for the last 7 years. She taught Latin and Greek in the Boston College high school program before joining the Boston Public Schools in 1997. Interesting. She runs a 19,000 person Somerville district. Somerville school system. Oh, there's more. And hold on, wait a minute. I'm going to bring in some folks that have called in just a few minutes. I just want to cover this, and we're going to bring the folks in because I know that they have something to say. Yeah, Skipper, former superintendent of the public schools, 19,500 student body in Somerville district. Wait a minute. Somerville, with a small school system of 19,500 students, why should she have the opportunity to run the Boston public school system? She doesn't have a depth of experience as a superintendent in a large school system. Why are you going to bring someone from a small school system and manage a larger school system? That's crazy to me. Now, the other guy that has been selected for public interviews and so forth is Mr. Welch, Tommy Welch. He came to Boston from Los Angeles Unified School District in 2015 when the former instructional superintendent, Tommy Chang, was appointed to the position of the Boston Public School Superintendency. Yeah, he brought him in from Los Angeles in 2015. As a Region 1 superintendent, he supports 15 schools that serve 7,000 people. Well, he oversees 15 schools serving 7,000 people, and she runs a school district with only 19,500 people. What kind of logical common sense does that make? It makes none. Well, that's my opinion. I could be wrong. We have a couple of folks. Well, we have a person that comes in on a regular, and we appreciate her coming in, and that is Dr. Sharon Hinton. Sharon Hinton is obviously a well-known community supporter, activist, educator, academician, professor. And I know she got a lot of things to say about this particular topic. So welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Pastor Wall. Good morning, my brother from another mother, Leon. There are ongoing hearings, interviews. You can look at Comcast Channel 24 from now until we just got off of one of the interviews with Tommy Welsh, Dr. Welch today. Yesterday was the day for Mary Skipper all day until about 7:30 last night. And each one of the, and so you can, yesterday there was a technical snafu, and the links that the school department put out were all wrong. And so the interviews actually got delayed by about 30 minutes and started later up until last night, where the school committee actually interviewed from 5:30 to 7:30 Mary Skipper, and they're going to do the same thing tonight. And those are actually on Channel 24. They're all supposed to be on Channel 24 Comcast, so people can see them. You can sign up. During the interview process, the community leaders one just ended. The next one is going to be for school officials and educators, and then there's one for students, and there's one for families. And then there's one for there's one for the school department. So the school committee itself. So people can chime in and see that. I am part of a coalition of several organizations that are calling for Mayor Wu to stop and slow up this process and don't announce anybody, don't select anybody. She seems to be on that track to meet this obligation of her putting somebody in there by the end of June, when because June 30th is when Brenda Cassellius leaves. She's done. Her contract is over. She takes a check and she goes to wherever. And so there's a growing coalition of people that are saying, hold up, stretch out, reinitiate the search, reinitiate it. And then because I'm hearing yesterday, I heard that the other two people, there were 4 people put forward. 2 of them were women of color. I have not been able to verify that. That's what I've heard. That dropped out of the process, supposedly for personal reasons. But we're calling for the search to be reopened and widened up and given some time to actually widen the search to have other people of color, and not just, there's information that Mary Skipper is very close to Commissioner Riley. And so because of her close relationship with Commissioner Riley, this may be another part of the triangle or a part of the group where Desi has influence. And there's also pushback between the mayor and Commissioner Riley trying to arrange some kind of agreement, which would be another, like a memorandum of understanding between the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which is the state, and the city of Boston and Boston Public Schools, to keep from an actual official takeover of BPS. So there's a lot of balls in the air. People need to pay attention. And it's happening now. It's happening through the rest of today. It's free. You can go on there, and if you're vacuuming or you're at work or something, like, you can watch it. You don't necessarily have to participate, but you can actually watch and see what's going on. But people need to pay attention, because this is going to directly affect schools, the values of our schools, and then the values of your housing and where you live, because people actually select where they live based on the school district.
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions here, because you essentially are the founder and president of Black Teachers Matter.
Executive director. Jonathan's the president.
Oh, Jonathan's the president, you're the director. Black Teachers Matter. Now,
Yep.
let me pose a couple of questions to you about not necessarily Black Teachers Matter, but your position on this issue. Now,
Right.
talk to me about and when I say talk to me about, I'm not trying to characterize her in any way, I just don't know her, and that is the Bunker Hill Community College president, Pam Endinger, who heads the search committee.
Mm.
She says that the search committee initially drew a diverse pool of Black, Latino, Asian, and white candidates. Hold on, there's more. She said that the committee prioritized candidates with experiences working with diverse populations, and she wanted a superintendent who is anti-racist. I got to ask now, I'm getting to the point. I just want to give context. She also said she nor any of the other committee members face outside pressure from elected officials or advocates, and you are an advocate, noting that each of the committee members that she is working with worked under strict orders not to discuss their proceedings with people outside of the committee. So, um, wait a minute. In Florida, they have sunshine laws. And sunshine laws essentially say if you have a meeting that is impacted by the general public has a need to know. It should be open. Why has this committee chair, Pam Endinger, essentially said, keep this meeting closed?
So there were parts of the meetings that were open. There were community meetings in anticipation of this process, or a part of the process, that were held at different times to ask the community in different parts of the community, what are the characteristics that you want in the superintendent that were supposedly put into the job description when the search firm was looking for candidates. The whole issue that we have, and when I say we, the coalition, is that the time frame for doing the search was way too short. It was arbitrarily forced by the mayor in terms of, I mean, she has certain, guidelines and certain things that she had to meet. The BTU, Boston Teachers Union, still doesn't have a contract. There was still the issue of the transportation company that didn't have a contract, which was part of the DESE MOU that was signed between Brendan Cassellius and Riley in March of 2020, 3 days before the schools were shut down totally because of COVID. And also this review process didn't take the 3-year time span of the MOU. It actually happened before the end of the MOU in the 2 years. And it actually happened during the pandemic. So there were all sorts of, this was telegraphed, in my opinion, this was telegraphed 3 years ago when DESE was positioning itself to make this move. And then you saw news articles coming out supporting, by the Pioneer Institute, supporting receivership. So there's a game that gets played. And I understand we're coming down to the end of your show. So there was part of the process in the beginning when the search firm was selected that the public could see. And then when it came to screening the 35 applicants for this position, it got closed. And the reasoning was because there are some people that are going for jobs who don't necessarily want their school district or where they're coming from to know that they're looking for another job. That was the reason, like a HIPAA sort of a thing, the confidentiality in terms of all the applicants, just in case
they shouldn't apply then. They shouldn't apply.
That's my opinion.
Here's the deal. Yeah. Here's the deal, is that if you're in the public domain, let's say if I'm a police commissioner and I'm looking for another police job, and the requirements is that you apply and it will be in a public forum, then they don't apply. That's it. I don't want to take the risk. But if you put a requirement in saying that, guess what? That's just the way it is. Guess what? Don't apply. Too bad. Don't apply.
The whole thing is that there was a longer search process for Tommy Chang and for the last two superintendents and for Brenda and for, So the last three superintendents, there was a longer search process.
Mhm.
And this is not precedent setting. I mean, when I was going for the school committee, I was told that there weren't enough applicants, even though I came as a finalist, and they
Mhm.
opened it back up again. So
Right.
so this has happened before in school committee, and this has happened before in at the search position, because that happened before during one of these superintendent search positions. They didn't have enough candidates, and so they reopened it and extended it. We're calling
Well,
for Mayor Wu to do that again right now. Like,
very
don't just
good.
shove this down our throat and say, well, this is the process and this is what we have to do. And Jerry Robinson, who's the chair of the Boston School Committee, during Wednesday's school committee, tried to get the school committee to just rubber stamp it. And there were two members that actually said, no, 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 let's slow it up. Let's slow it up. The two
Well,
most
we only
recent
have 1
appointments said,
minute
slow
to
it up.
go, and thank you. Thank you, Sharon, for the observations. I still say that that's one of the dysfunctions of the city of Boston's public school system, is that it is not open. It's
People
not
need to
open.
flood the mayor's office right now and tell her to open back up the process. That's what's going to
Yes,
happen.
we
Open it
agree.
back up.
Well, thank you very much. You
Thank
have
you.
been phenomenal as usual. This is All Things Black Politics live here from Boston Black News. I'm your host, Leon Rock, and you've heard Sharon Hinton give her observations on what's going on in the Boston public school system. I say there's a need for a change. Change it soon. This, again, is All Things Black Politics. I will see you in about a week on 11 o'clock every Friday. Thank you. Bye now.